Okay. So this two things we're gonna do today. Identify and log defects. So if we look at our test cases, right? So this is something I executed last week against this application. This is the application which is pretty decent and probably doesn't have many defects. So last week we said just fail a test case for practicing, because eventually we'll go and test an actual application and find and log defects. But here, the test cases that we created, we may not have any defects. So I said go ahead and fail a step. So last week we failed this step, which is verify user. User shall be able to navigate to home page, sign on page using Edge browser, and we said here user is not able to navigate to the home page using Edge browser. So we're gonna log a defect for that. We go to the Edge browser. This is my Edge browser, and then we're gonna recreate this situation, right? So we got a 404 error, means application not found, right? Maybe it's a different topic for a different day, like this error codes, right? We have different error
You're
codes.
you're still on the Firefox. I don't know if you're sharing the Edge.
Thank you very much. I was sharing probably just one screen, one monitor. Okay. So I'm on Edge here. If you guys can see, are you able to see the Edge browser? It's not found.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you see like 404 not found. So that's an error code. There are other error codes as well. I will try to give you some information about this later some point. Like we have 401, we have 400, 404, and then also we have positive error codes like 200, 201, things like this. So we'll learn about this later, but just for now, let's understand that application does not work in Edge browser. And this is our test case for that, right? Now we found the bug. How do we log it, right? Logging the bug, right? Usually you need a tool to log the bug, but we'll get to that tool once we start our project work. Right now, we're just going to log it in Microsoft Word. Saad, are you on today? Saad?
Assalamualaikum.
Saad, I just remember something. Can you please reach out to Hussein, Brother Hussein, and submit your resume to him? I spoke to him yesterday. There might be opportunity. So if you can kindly submit your resume to Hussein.
Yeah, sure, brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. So we failed this step. Now we need to log a defect. And defect template looks something like this, right? A defect has a summary. This is the summary of defect, right? A summary should tell the entire story. This is a summary. The summary should tell the entire story. We're gonna modify it right now, but I'm just showing you defect template. After the summary, you should provide reproducible steps, and reproducible steps is nothing but how do you get to that issue, the defect, right? Where is the defect? How do you get to it? So these are the steps you need to provide. Actual results. You need to provide actual results. Like what are you seeing in the application? What are you seeing in the defect? That's what you need to provide. Then expected result. What are you expecting? Why do you think it's a defect, right? What are you expecting? That's something you need to log as well. A defect is nothing but difference between actual and expected result, right? This is what I'm expecting, this is what I'm getting. That's the defect. Priority, assignee, screenshots, that's like the main component. These are the mandatory field when you're logging a defect. In your interview, right, they will ask you about defect. How do you log defects? Or they'll ask you anything related defects, like what is the process you follow to log a defect, or what are the main component you usually have when you log a defect. So any of these questions they ask you related to defect, tell them all about this, right? You don't need to say, like, give them actual steps or actual summary, but you need to tell them, like, hey, when I log a defect, I make sure I have a good summary that tells the entire story, then clean, reproducible steps, actual result, expected result, priority, assignee, screenshots, things like this, right? So it's clear. Now going into our defect. So our defect summary is, so when you look at the summary, right, there's two part to it, right? One is where it happened, and then what happened. So between this, you have a pipe symbol is separating. Now, this was a different defect, like in the hotel page, the functionality was broken, right? But in our case is, so we're looking in our, okay, no, not this one. It's the browser, right? Edge browser. So in our case, Edge browser application is not loading, right? Application is not loading. Basically, that's a defect for our case. So what we're gonna do here, we're just going to change this, right? So where, like this part of the summary is where, right? So what should we write here? We should just simply write Edge, right? The issue happened with the Edge browser. So we're gonna say Edge, and then what is the rest of it? The application is not loading in the, that's it. That's your summary, and this should tell the entire story. So when you write a summary like this, do you think anyone will have any confusion? This is simple, right? So um that's why it's straightforward. But when you have a complex defect and you don't write proper summary, that's a problem, and we face it very often at work. People write a defect, but no one knows what they mean about this defect. Okay, so this is our summary, then reproducible steps. How do we reproduce it? So here, open Edge, enter the URL, and hit enter key. That's it, right? Even here we are done. Verify the home page of the application. Actual result is not loading. Expected result, user should see the home page. Uh, user should be able to log into the should be able to log in to the homepage successfully. Okay, so that's your defect. That's your entire defect, right? And I'm not gonna talk about the rest for a second, but let me explain something else. So now here you need to take this screenshot, right? It's important, right? You need to take this screenshot. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, brother, I can hear you.
Yes, sir.
That's very clear. Yeah, brother.
Oh, thank you so much. Sorry, sometimes so quiet. I don't know if I'm just talking to
Yeah.
myself. Okay, so it's best if you also want to display the browser details when you're taking the screenshot, because this is related to the browser, right? So in Chrome there's an option about Chrome or about the browser, but here I'm not seeing the option because I don't really use.
Yeah, bottom.
Where?
DevTools on the bottom, right there. You had it.
Oh, I had it.
The bottom one. This is the one you were looking for?
Yeah, this is fine. This is fine. Usually in Chrome there are other options, but this is fine too, right? It tells you that it is like up until this is good. Here, this is fine. So this is your screenshot, and now you need to add the screenshot to your defect. Right, so instead of this, we're gonna do this. Right, that's it. So this is your defect. Now, when it comes to defect, right, there are priority. Like priority meaning like how important this defect is. Now there are priorities like blocker, high, medium, low. These are like the 4 standard when it comes to defect. So when you're working in an application, there will be hundreds of defects. There will be hundreds of defects. And now everything has a timeline, everything has a deadline, right? Your developers will not fix all of them at once. Now we need to set the priority. Based on the priority, they will fix those defects. So that if something is a blocker, they have to fix it ASAP, meaning right away. They need to fix it right away. If it's high priority, it comes right after the blocker. Once they finishes the blockers, then they will start looking into high priority, and then medium, and then low. So a blocker would be something like something is breaking the entire application. It's a showstopper. High priority would be something right next to it, meaning it's not a showstopper for the entire application, but it's breaking the application in one way or other. Then medium, right below that, medium would be, it's there are some functionalities not working as expected. And then low priority. Low is like a cosmetic stuff, very low priority. Most cases, it takes time for developers to get to them because those are not high priority, those are not medium, those are not blocker. Those does not have any business impact. So they take their time. Sometimes they fix them in next year or something like that. Of course, definitely not in current sprint or next sprint. It takes time. So priority is very, very important when you're defining when you're writing a defect. By looking at this one, what do you guys think? What is the priority should be on this defect? If you look at this one, this is your defect. What should be the priority on this one? Is it blocker? Is it
Blocker.
high? Yeah, because it's breaking the entire application. You cannot access the application, right? So this would be a blocker defect, and that should be fixed ASAP.
So you define a blocker by it just not being able to continue on. So that's why it's blocker. So blocker would be more than high, right?
Right.
Okay.
Okay, so that's done. Your defect is complete. Right. Any corrections? Just to give you guys an example, how many defects like you could have in an application while you're testing it, right? So this is a dashboard. Don't worry about it now. This is fancy stuff I created. You guys will be able to create it eventually. But what I'm trying to show you here, right? So if you look at my current project, which was, let's say, a month long, and we created 172 defects. So this is the total defect count. We closed 98, we still have 74 open. So think about 174 defects. That is after developing an application. So developers have developed an application, never assume it's good. So look at this. They made 172 errors. So out of them, 98 was already closed, 74. We still need to fix it. They need to fix it. Now, if you look at different priority, so for my application, for my project, we have priorities like different, like how I said, blocker, high, medium, low. But here, of course, we have the blocker and high is critical. So every project can use their own wording, but it all means the same, right? So we have blockers, we have critical is same thing as high, then major is same thing as medium, and then minor. If you're comparing, if you're not comparing, like, of course, they all make sense on their own. We don't need to compare with the common sense. We can understand this, what it means, right? Blocker is a showstopper. Critical is some right next to it is breaking application one way or another. So if we look at how many blockers we have 2 blockers, we have 28 critical, we have 24 major and 24 minor. These are the issues we have logged in that application. So if you click on it, right, you can see, so let's say I want to see the critical ones. If you click on it, it will take you to the list of how many criticals bugs we logged. So here, all of these critical bugs. Now, these bugs have statuses, right? If you look at the status, as part of tracking defects, right? So we're talking about identifying and logging defects, which we have done, right? We've identified that application is not loading on the Edge browser, and then we log the defect, right? Before you log the defect, you need to make sure it's reproducible. Just because you saw a defect, don't just rush into logging a defect. Reproduce it at least 3 times. Make sure that it's a valid defect. And why I said that, because often sometimes you see, like, application is not working, and then you refresh it, it's working. So there could be some internal or external issue. External could be, let's say, server was down for a second, or somebody rebooted the server, or other issues. Your internal issue could be your local network issue, or or other things. So you want to avoid this when you're logging a defect. You should be able to consistently reproducing that defect, because when you log this defect, the developers they would have to reproduce it to work on it, and if they're not able to reproduce it, then it's an issue, right? So you can provide reproducible steps. You can provide screenshot. You can also provide screen recording if possible, if needed. All right, so identifying and logging defect is done. Tracking defects. So how do you track those defects? By its statuses. So each of these defect has its status, right? You can see statuses here, and I'll get to it in a second. But for now, okay, so you see like how I'm teaching you guys, all of this defect, they're logged. If you look at the summary, you'll be able to tell the entire story, right? So this is the defect ID, obviously, and in the summary, you see two parts to it. First part is saying DBR. Where is DBR? DBR is a component. That's where the issue happened. And then what happened? Humidity graph is showing incorrectly in data comparison report. So he's saying, right, this guy, he's also from, he's a student of IT solutions, guys. He's working in a real job. His name is Tamid. He's one of your senior. So basically, summary, right? Summary is telling the entire story, and then reproducible steps, expected result, actual result, and the screenshot. Instead of a screenshot, he created a video recording here. You can see he has recorded everything so that developers can reproduce it and understand it easily, right? So that's the idea. As a good tester, your work should be very clean. They should not, once you log a defect, they should not come back and ask you, hey, what is it? I don't understand. There should not be this kind of situation, right? Now, this is a tool. It's called Jira. We're gonna use this as well. This is something is used in the industry, so we're gonna use it, right? As well. Now, defect has statuses. If you look at okay, I'm not gonna go through this one. Rather, let's go through our standard. So SDLC, DLC, defect life cycle. Okay, so defect has statuses, status like new, open, assigned, fixed, verified, close, and then reopened, rejected, and deferred. So again, guys, this is standard, but it may vary company to company. Like if I compare this with my company, it's not gonna match. But you guys should, if you understand this one, you guys should understand any other defect workflow because they all mean the same. New is when you log a defect. So when you log a defect, the status would be new. And then somebody will open it, right? Open it to work on it. So status will change to open, and then they will assign it. So basically this area is developers, like second, third, and fourth. So this is the first one is your status. You'll log it, and it's gonna say new, and then developers will open it and assign it and fix it, right? So these three are there, and then once it's fixed, once you see the status is fixed, now you as a QA, you start working on it. And the status changes to fix. And if everything, status changes to verified. Once you verify it, you change the status to verified, and then, if everything is good, you just close it, basically. So this is the happy path: new, open, assigned, fix, verified, close. You log a defect, and then the status will be changed to open and assign and fix. So this three will be developers. They will open it. So, each group has managers and leads. So initially the manager will open it, and then that manager will assign it to his team member. And the status will change to assign, and that person will work on it. And once he's done, he's going to change the status to fix, meaning I worked on it and then I fixed it. And you as a QA, once you see its status change to fix, you are gonna verify it. And once you verify it, you're gonna change the status to verified. And in some cases, internal review happens.
And or if it doesn't happen, you'll just change the status to close. And if internal review happens, then collectively you guys will close it. Done, right? So this is the happy path. Now,
So the developers would create a fix to the bug and then we just verify the fix?
yeah.
Okay.
Now, after assigning a defect, right? When you log a defect, in some cases, your defect can be rejected. And there are many reasons for that. Actually, let's go to reopen first and then rejected. So after assigning to a developer, he will provide fix of it. And once you see that status is fixed, now it's your job to retest it to make sure that it is fixed or it's not, right? So developers think they fixed it. Now you're the main man. You're going to go and verify it and say, hey, you fixed it or you didn't fix it properly. Of course, the happy path, I said, if it's fixed, you verify it, you mark it as verified and close. Now, in some cases, you will see that they feel like they fixed it, but they really didn't fix it, or they couldn't fix it, or there was issues. So now, if you find after them fixing it, if you still see there's issues, you're going to reopen that bug. You're going to reopen it and reassign. So this is the workflow when they fix a bug, but you think they didn't fix it properly. They still have to do more work. So in that case, you're going to reopen it and reassign it, and they will work again, and they will send it to you once that is fixed. Then you're going to retest again, and of course, you're going to change the status to verified and close if it is fixed. So that's the other scenario, right? This is the happy path. And this is where the bug, the fixes they provide, it's not really fixed. So you'd reopen it and then reassign it basically. So that's the second flaw. The third flaw is once a defect is marked as assigned, they would review it and they can reject it. They can reject it for many reasons. Number one, there could be, you feel it's a defect, they feel it's not defect. So they can reject it and say, hey, this is not a defect. And it's totally fine because in some cases you may have a gap in understanding. And they may explain this to you saying, hey, you log this defect. It happens rarely, but this is also a possibility. They may say, hey, you log this defect. It is expected behavior, and this is the explanation. Now, if you agree to it, of course, it is rejected and closed, done. If you don't agree to it, of course, you're going to ask them for further clarity, or you're going to involve business analysts. Business analysts are the people who writes the requirements. So they are the people you can refer to and say, hey, I log this defect. I genuinely think it's a defect. Developers are not agreeing. Can you provide your input? So that's that. So this is one situation where they can reject it, right? And the other situation could be like, let's say, multiple people working on the project, multiple QAs, right? And if two of you log the same defect, then, of course, it's duplicate defects. So they will reject one of them as a duplicate. And in that cases, no question asked. You have two defects open for the same thing, so one would be rejected, right? So that's the other flaw. And the fourth flaw is deferred. So deferred is, let's say you created a defect, you logged a defect, but it's a very minor defect, right? You guys remember we talked about the priority of this defect. The priority is blocker, high, medium, low, right? So let's say you log a defect is very, very low in priority, and the developer said, hey, it's a defect. I understand, we'll fix it, but right now we are working on high priority items, so we're going to defer it. Defer it meaning we're going to fix it in the future release. There are releases, right? Release 1, release 2, release 3, release 4. So that would say like in this release, we don't have the capacity to fix it. We're going to fix it in future release. So that's deferred. So these are your workflow. These are your defect workflow, and I think you should look into it, learn it, understand it, spend some time. But it's very important as a QA. Understanding defect workflow, and every bits of it is very important. Any questions?
What is a critical one? 'Cause you said low, medium, high, blocked, and then I seen another thing critical. So what does that define as? Sorry, thank you.
Okay. Can someone else explain? Does anyone have idea about critical bugs? If all of you or some of you paid attention.
Well, you said blocking would be
No, I'm not
breaking
asking
high.
you. Hold on, brother. I'm trying to see if anybody got it. You got your question across. We will answer it. Anyone have idea about critical bugs?
I will give it a try. I think the critical bug is the most priority bugs, like it needs to be fixed right away. That's the thing actually. Like
Okay,
the
so
blocker, as you said.
we said, right, those priorities, right, it could vary company to company, right? So here I was giving you example of IT solutions. Of course, this is what we are, this is our school. This is what we are learning from, but also I was showing you example from my actual work, right? So it's two companies. So my work, actual work, sometimes I go and give you guys example from my actual work. So you guys see an actual project. And there is also IT solutions, which is the class, right? The school. So two different companies here, right? So like I said, this status says it varies company to company, how they want to name them, but they all mean same. They all mean same, right? Blocker is a blocker. A critical is same thing as high, right? In IT solutions, we said we are gonna go with the statuses blocker, high, medium, low, right? 4 statuses. But what we saw in my company, we're saying blocker, critical, major, minor, right? But you see like 4 statuses, they're aligned, they're same thing. Critical is same as high, medium is same as major, and low is low, right? So it's critical is same thing as high. Blocker is the highest priority. It's breaking. It's a showstopper. A showstopper is something that stops you from moving forward. And the next thing is the critical or high, meaning this too is breaking application one way or another, but it's not blocking you entirely, right? I'm sorry if I'm confusing you with two different projects, but what I saw when I gave them an example from actual project, they love it. The students love it. So that's why I try to give you guys an example from both places so that you see a broader picture, right? You just don't limit yourself to just one particular wording or one way of working. You need to be flexible, have open mind so that you can adapt easily. That's the idea behind it. Okay, any other questions? So these are the things, right, you guys should pay attention to. But thank you. Let's see what else is there. Sure, brother. What else is there? So with this, right, we are pretty much done with STLC. If you look at STLC, STLC is STLC is pretty much done. I don't know why do I have this here. So we just have a test analysis report. We can talk about it next week. But this week, these two are very, very important. So I think you guys should take some time, learn about it, practice it. And next week, you guys should log a defect or two. For practicing purpose, log a defect, provide the steps and summaries and everything else. Also, there is another thing is the severity. It's something that I didn't mention here because when you log a defect, what I went over is the most essential fields. Like when you create a defect, you will see mandatory fields, right? You know, the summary, if you look at the summary, all the reds, this is where you put your descriptions and reproducible steps. The priority. And there is like this is where you add your screenshots. And there is a field called severity. So priority is like how high that is, how critical that bug is, and how soon they should fix it. But when it comes to severity, this also has its own what do you call it? Own statuses, right? Own ranking. Sorry, its own ranking. So it's like high, medium, low. High. So severity is how this functionality is impacting the business, basically. When this is in this case, in most cases, severity is not going to be mandatory. As long you are assigning the priority, they should be fine. But in some cases, let's say you have a company, they really follow the best practices, they would ask you to assign severity as well. And in your interview, right, they may ask you about severity as well. So severity, like this, you'd be defining how this is impacting the business, basically. How crucial it is for the business to fix it. In most cases, if something is blocker is the high severity as well. If something is right after the blocker, which is high or critical, then it can be medium or high. So it depends on how this part of that application is breaking, is impacting the business. So you can define the severity, or if it's not mandatory, you don't need to define the severity unless they ask you. But for your interview, it's good to know that there is additional field called severity, which is right after the priority. You must define the priority, but you can define the severity if you have the clarity, basically. So severity can be high, medium, low, and the high would be if depending on the business scenario, like how it is impacting your business. Obviously, if it's a blocker, it's going to be a high severity, and so on. And rest of it, is a judgmental call. You, as a tester, based on your knowledge, you would provide the severity. So that's the other field I needed to cover. Other than that, what we went over, if you know it, you're good to go. Okay, so I'm gonna stop recording and